Fixed assets are long-term items you own, such as equipment, vehicles, buildings, and other depreciable items. Fixed assets are maintained as a separate list in CenterPoint, and each fixed asset is assigned to a general ledger account. This provides a couple benefits. One is to summarize all of your individual assets on a balance sheet by the general ledger type of asset, rather than a very long balance sheet that would include each individual item. Another benefit is fixed assets store additional details that provide an easy way to maintain and run depreciation transactions in CenterPoint. Let's go create a fixed asset item. If you are just beginning to enter fixed asset items, you'll first want a set of general ledger accounts that organize and group your assets. So we're going to go up to Setup, Accounts, and Accounts to create the general ledger accounts we want to represent our individual fixed asset items. So under Assets, I'm going to go down to my Machinery and Equipment, and you can see here that we have a list of general ledger accounts that just describe my individual items, but I don't have a general ledger account that represents a specific item. These are just general categories to group all the items I have. Your list is going to be different depending upon your business and what you would want to see on a balance sheet. And if we look at buildings and improvements, you can see the general ledger accounts that we use there. When you create your account, all you'll need, let's just edit one of these. All you'll need is your name of the general ledger account. Abbreviation and account number are optional, and they will be in the account type of assets and then the particular category, such as this one is under Machinery and Equipment. Once you have your general ledger accounts, you're ready to add your fixed asset items, and fixed asset items can be added either from Setup, Fixed Assets, and then Fixed Assets, or we can also add fixed asset items as we do our purchase, either in a payment screen or a vendor invoice, and we'll show you that too in a little bit. We're first going to expand our assets, and we see all of the account categories that are allowed for fixed asset items, and underneath each category are our general ledger accounts that we saw. And they are represented by the red $sign. If we expand one of these general ledger accounts, now we'll see the individual fixed asset items that we already have underneath this particular general ledger account. If you want to create a new one from this screen, you're going to click the New button down at the bottom. And we're going to purchase an ATV. So we're going to put in an abbreviation of ATV and then a name that we want to describe this particular item. On the asset field, we can do our lookup, and you will see all the general ledger accounts that are in the categories that are for fixed asset type items. And in this particular case, we're going to put it under Other Equipment. That then brings us to our next field of our depreciation expense. When we run depreciation, we get a choice of that item, either adjusting the actual fixed asset item, which in this case would be the ATV, or we can have it adjust an accumulated depreciation, meaning that the actual book value of this fixed asset item would always remain constant, and an accumulated depreciation that's associated to the fixed asset, of this case ATV Gator, would decrease every time we run depreciation. And either the accumulated depreciation, or if you choose to adjust the book value of the actual item, is going to get offset with a depreciation expense account. So that option is found under your Preferences. File, Preferences, click on Depreciation, then click the General, and over on the right, click the Database tab. And here we have the option of how we want to handle depreciation, whether we want to adjust an accumulated depreciation account, and under that accumulated depreciation, it's then going to make subledger values for each one of our fixed asset items with a negative value representing what has been depreciated. Or we can choose to reduce the item book value, which means we're not using accumulated depreciation at all. When we run depreciation, the actual fixed asset is getting decreased and offset with depreciation expense. So then I could select this item, and it's going to give you a warning. Are you sure you want to calculate this way? And you should only make this choice once. It's not something that you should change in the middle. You want to decide if you want to adjust your book value or if you want to use accumulated depreciation, but you want to stick with one way. And then down at the bottom is another option of how we can handle changes in our book values and market values of our fixed asset items. So when you purchase that item, if you want the book value and the market value to be adjusted at that time, and if you want depreciation to adjust those market values, then you want to answer yes. If you want to adjust market value yourself and you never want transactions to update the market, only the book, then you want adjust market values and set this at no. But we're going to leave this at yes. And once you've made those changes, then you're going to click Save. And if you chose accumulated depreciation, then this makes the fields active for accumulated depreciation. If we had selected to adjust book value, this would be grayed out. So we're going to go ahead and fill in our depreciation expense that we're using for this particular item and our accumulated depreciation account. Down at the bottom are some options of how you want your production details to be updated. If you're going to have depreciation expense be adjusted by a distribution to distribute that cost across your different profit centers and production center details that you're using, then you're going to leave this checkbox checked. If you want to assign this particular item to specific combinations of detail, then you uncheck that and fill this detail in. We're going to leave it checked. And then we have an additional asset detail. And these details are specific for fixed asset items. So if you have more than one company, you first want to select the company that owns this particular item. And then you can fill in what the service date is. And we're going to put in a date here. It's always going to have a date sold that is a far out in the future date. And when you sell this item, then you can update that date sold to the correct date. We can put in the original cost. There is a way for your template to automatically update the original cost, and we'll address that in another video that we're going to do on fixed asset tips. But we're going to fill in our original cost here, and we're going to say that our ATV is $7,000. And units is if you have an asset where units are applied to that particular item. In this case, it doesn't matter. We could put 1. And if you have a serial number for this particular item, you could put that in there too. And then depreciation amount, we can fill it in here, or we can fill it in later in maintain depreciation, where we'll address that in another video later too. But if this were the amount that we wanted every time we run depreciation to take, then we can put that amount in there. And so we're going to do depreciation on a yearly basis, we're saying right now. And so we're just going to divide that by 7 years and take 1,000. Those are the details that you need in the depreciation information on this fixed asset. And now we can click Save. There are other buttons down at the bottom if we needed to edit an asset here, like if we wanted to change maybe the location of one of these fixed asset items and put it under a different a general ledger account, like perhaps we see one here, loader tractor, under other equipment. Maybe we'd rather see that under tractors. We can edit, can either double click or you can click the edit button at the bottom. And I could change this item to a different location. That's not going to do anything if there's activity to this account. It's just going to move it in where it shows on reports and in your list. And that moved it up to tractors instead of other equipment. Delete would let you delete an item, and it won't let you delete it if there's activity to it. it would come up and say, are you sure you want to delete this item? And if you say yes, it'll say you could not delete this, although you can inactivate it because it sees activity out there. So it helps you to not delete something that you have previously done a transaction to. If we wanted to create a new asset by copying one that's existing, you can click the copy button. That would copy in the details from that particular asset, and you would make changes for the new asset. And then there is a way to combine two items on the list. If you have two items that were created that really represent one, you can combine those by selecting the one asset that you want to get rid of and click combine and indicate which one that you're combining it to. And then you have your balances across the top. If we go to the balances and expand, you'll see each one of these different groups again of your general ledger accounts, and we can expand here and see the values that are in each one of our assets. And this is where you could come also to update your fair market value at any time on your individual fixed asset items. You'll see that our ATV Gator is listed, but there are 0 values because we have not done the transaction to purchase it yet, which we're going to do now. So we're going to go ahead and close this. And we're going to go to a payment screen. And we have an all power equipment, and we can put in our check number if we want to, and the date that we're going to purchase it. We're going to leave the amount empty up there for right now. And we're going to come down to account. So we can select our account by selecting the fixed asset item at this point. So we can select our ATV Gator, or I could have done my lookup and it would have been in my list, and fill in any details that we want. We're going to go put in our amount, which was $7,000 that we're purchasing this for. And we're really done at this point. We could put in more details if we want to, but we don't need any other details when we're purchasing this fixed asset item. We could click adjust amount and we're ready to purchase this. And at that point, it's going to update my book value, and it's going to update my market value because I set that preference on adjusting fair market value, and I set it to yes. So it would update both values for me. Now let's say that we want to create a new fixed asset item from the purchase screen. And let's say that we also got a snowplow attachment for this Gator. So instead of having to go back up to set up fixed assets to create that, I can do it right here from my payment screen. I'm going to position my mouse in my account field, right click, and I'm going to choose new fixed asset item. You don't want to do new account. We're not making a general ledger account. We're making a new fixed asset item. So we're going to select that. That brings up my detail screen for a fixed asset. And I'm going to put ATV plow for my abbreviation and call it a snow plow. And it again is going to go in my other equipment. And I'm going to pick my depreciation expense and my accumulated account. I can go to my detail and select my company. And it filled in my service date because now it knew it from my transaction date. Leave my date sold. And I'm going to say that this was $1,000 for the snowplow attachment. And I could put a serial number again if I want, and I could put in the depreciation amount, or I can leave it to do that later. So we're going to go ahead and click Save. That filled in my account with my ATV Gator snowplow. And now we can put in the amount of that. And again, we're done with that. We don't really need any other details on purchasing that snowplow attachment. That's going to update my other fixed asset item for the snowplow. The other thing that fixed assets does for you is gives you a way to associate your repairs to the fixed asset so that at any given time you could do a report on all the repairs to your individual assets and what assets have caused a lot of repairs, or whatever case that, or to look up where that repair was done perhaps. So if we had, let's say on this invoice that we got from All Power, we also have a repair here on a skid steer that we have. So we're going to do a repair for equipment. And we're going to say it was for some tires. And we're going to go to the detail screen. And in our associated account is where you'd want to pick that fixed asset item. And we have a fixed asset item of a skid steer. So now this repair is going to be tagged to the skid steer. It's not going to adjust any balance on the skid steer. It's just going to tag it so that we can use that later in a report. And we're going to do that report in that fixed asset tips video also. So now we have that particular item. We can put a notation in here that we did tires. And we're ready to save this transaction. We're going to click adjust amount. And we're going to save that. And that will have adjusted our balances for our fixed assets of our Gator our Gator ATV and our Gator snowplow. So we're going to go back to fixed assets and take a look at our balances under machinery and equipment and other equipment. And now we see our balances there, which updated the book and the market value. So that is how to create your fixed asset items. And there are also videos other than the fixed asset tips. We also have videos on maintain depreciation and a video to run depreciation transactions.